Okay, so for this type of problem, we're working with a parallelogram. Remember that in a parallelogram, the opposite sides are congruent and the opposite angles are congruent. The diagonals bisect each other. Okay, so we want to use those things we know about a parallelogram to answer some of these problems. So number 4 says if AD is this side over here, if that side is 20, then what is BC? Well, if we look at BC, that's the opposite side. It's the same, so it's going to be 20. Okay, now I'm going to treat each of these problems as if it's a separate situation. So each time I'm going to go through and erase all the marks that I made previously because it's like a whole new problem. Okay, so it says if AB is 13, so AB is over here, it's this side. Then what is DC? Well, DC is the opposite side. We know those two sides are congruent, so that also must be 13. Okay, for number 6, it says that DB, which is the diagonal, okay, is 22. So this whole diagonal is 22. It wants to know then what is DE. Well, DE is actually just this portion of the diagonal. It's part of the diagonal. Now, one of the things we know is that the two parts of the diagonals are congruent. So since the diagonals bisect each other, this diagonal DB is being cut in half, and E is the middle of the diagonal. So what's half of 22? It's 11. Okay, let's look at the next one. Number 7 is AE is 18, so AE is this portion of this diagonal, that's 18. It wants to know what AC is. Well, AC is this whole entire thing. So if half of it's 18, the other half also has to be 18, so 18 plus 18, that's going to be 36. Okay, let's take a look at number 8. It says a measure of angle ADC. Well, ADC, let's find that angle, ADC. Okay, D is the middle letter, so D would be right here, so that would be the angle. Okay, that's 115 degrees. All right, it wants to know what then angle ABC is. Okay, let's look at where ABC is. ABC, B is the middle letter, so that would be this angle right here. Now, one of the things we know about a parallelogram is that their opposite angles are congruent. So if ADC is 115, so is ABC. It's also the same. So that one is 115 degrees as well. Okay, let's look at number 9. Number 9 says angle DAB is 75, so DAB, A is the middle letter, so that's this whole angle right here, angle A, is 75 degrees. It wants to know what the measure of angle ADC is. So let's look where that is. ADC, okay. Now ADC is right here. These angles are not opposite, they're consecutive angles, which means they're supplementary, okay? So the yellow angle and the blue angle add up to 180. So to find the missing one, we're going to go ahead and do 180 minus 75, which then would give us 105. Okay, number 10. Number 10 says measure angle 1 equals 30 degrees. So let's find angle 1. Angle 1 is this angle right here. This part is 30 degrees. It says measure angle 4 equals what? Okay, so we are trying to find angle 4, which is over here. Okay. Now, one thing we know about angle 1 and angle 4 is because this is a parallelogram, these two lines are parallel, right? They're never going to touch each other. Therefore, the alternate interior angles created by this line are going to be congruent. So since angle 1 and angle 4, since the blue angle here and the yellow angle over here are considered alternate interior, what that means is that they're congruent to each other. So this one also must be 30 degrees. All right, let's take a look at number 11. All right, number 11 says the measure of angle AED equals 72. So AED, let's look at where that is. AED, that's right here. That's this angle right here, because E is in the middle. Okay, 72 degrees. Now it wants to know what the measure of angle DEC is. I'm going to highlight that one, DEC. That's this angle right here. Now those two angles are not the same size, but what I do notice is that together they form a straight line. Okay, the measure of a straight angle is 180, so those two angles must be supplementary. So to find the yellow angle, I'm going to subtract 180 minus 72. And so then when I subtract, I would get 108. All right, let's take a look at the next one, number 12. Number 12 says if the measure of angle ADC, that's over here, this whole thing, is 130, and the measure of angle 1 is 35, so angle 1 is this little angle right here, that's 35. It wants us to find the measure of angle 2. So what it's asking for is it's asking for this angle right here, angle 2, this green one that I highlighted. Okay, one thing I know is that this one over here and this whole angle over here, these ones are consecutive, so they are going to add up to 180 degrees. Okay, now this green one that's missing, I don't know its size, but it's part of that whole angle over here that adds with 130 to make 180. So let's call this green angle, let's call it X. Okay, so I'm going to set up the equation X plus 35 plus 130 all adds up to 180. And I'm going to go ahead and solve that. So I would get X plus 165 equals 180. And now when I subtract, I would get the value of X equals 15. So what I know is that X is this angle right here, the little one I'm trying to find. So that one must be 15 degrees, because now 130 plus 15 plus 35 all adds up to 180. So that one's going to be 15. Okay, number 13. It says if AC equals 30, let's look at where AC is. AC is this diagonal right here. This whole thing, the whole entire diagonal is 30. And AE equals 3x plus 3. So AE is right here. That part's 3x plus 3. It wants to know what the value of x is. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can do this, but probably the easiest one is recognizing that this whole diagonal is being cut in half. So what's half of 30? Well, it's 15. So just from A to E, that part right there, that's 15, right? Because the other side is also 15. These two parts are congruent. 15 and 15 makes 30. Well, it told us that AE was also equal to 3x plus 3. So I know that 3x plus 3 has to equal 15. So now I can just solve this equation. So I'll subtract 3 from both sides and then divide. And we get x equals 4. Alright, let's take a look at the last one in this set. For number 14, it says if DC equals 6x plus y, let's look at where DC is. DC is right here. That side is 6x plus y. BC equals 3x plus y, or sorry, 3x plus 2y. Let's look at where that one is. It's over here. 3x plus 2y. AB equals 25. Well, AB is over here. That's 25, that side. And AD equals 14. That's over here. Okay, it wants us to find x and find y. Okay, so in this problem, I know that these two parts are congruent. I also know that these two parts are congruent. Okay, this is kind of a tricky problem because it reviews solving a system of equations. Okay, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to use the two blue sides first. I'm going to set them equal to each other. And then I'm going to solve for y. So I'm just going to try to get y by itself, this one right here. Okay, you'll see why I'm going to do that in a minute. Now I can't really subtract 6x from 25 because they're not like terms. So I just get this weird expression, y equals 25 minus 6x. Okay, now what I can do is I can take this weird expression, I can take this whole thing, and I can plug it in to the y value here. Now, why would I want to do that? I want to do that because when I do that, that will allow me to have only x's and solve for x. So I know that 14 is the same size as 3x plus 2y. So I'm going to do 14 equals 3x plus 2, but instead of writing y, I'm going to write this expression 25 minus 6x. So I have 2 times 25 minus 6x. Now I have an expression with only x's and I can solve that. So I'm going to get 14 equals 3x. I'm going to distribute this 2 plus 50 minus 12x. I'm going to combine my like terms. 14 equals negative 9x plus 50. I'm going to subtract 50 from both sides. So I get negative 36 equals negative 9x. And then I'm going to divide. And I get x would equal positive 4. So I've gone ahead and found my value of x. Now I just need to find my value of y. To find y, I'm going to go ahead and plug in that number 4 back in to this equation that I got over here. So for y, I would get y equals 25 minus 6 times 4. So I would get y equals 25 minus 24, which would then give me 1. So the value of y is 1. Number 14, there won't be anything that complicated on your test. So I want you to be more concerned with numbers 4 through 12, examples like that. If you're not understanding any of these problems, make sure you ask for help.